Last week, in the OnlyFans murder case, there was new evidence that came out during the defendant's bail hearing that quite honestly made my jaw drop. I'll give you a hint. It has to do with knives and hospitalizations. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to Legalbytes. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel we make sense of the law one bite at a time. So before we get into these new details, let's first go over just a little bit of background to make sure that we are on the same page here. On April 3rd, 2022, a 911 call was made from the home of Courtney Clenney in Miami, Florida. The Instagram influencer and OnlyFans star who professionally goes by the name Courtney Tailor was calling because her boyfriend, Christian Obumzelli, had been stabbed with a kitchen knife, and she was the one who stabbed him. Here's just a short clip of some bits and pieces of that 911 call that Clenney made that night.
She called 911.
My boyfriend is dying of a stab.
Ma'am, what is the address?
If he has a stab wound to his shoulder, can he sit down?
What do you mean he has a stab wound on his shoulder, ma'am?
Yeah, he's bleeding from his shoulder.
In the background of the call, Obumzelli can be heard saying he can't feel his arm and believes he's going to die.
I'm gonna die, I can't feel my arm. 3101. I can't feel my arm.
Later, Clenney can be heard apologizing to Obumzelli
Baby, I'm so sorry. Baby.
and praying for help.
Get up. Please God, please God. Please God.
After that, the call drops.
Is he awake? Hello?
So when the police arrived, Clenney immediately gave an account of what she says happened. She said she stabbed Obumzelli, but that it was in self-defense. Specifically, she said that she flung the knife at Obumzelli to stop him from choking and beating her. Given their size difference and the fact that this was a woman's account against a man, the police took her story down initially as a case of self-defense. However, later on, the medical examiner's report showed that there were some conflicts with her story. Specifically, the report said that the knife injury that Obumzelli sustained did not support Clenney's claim that she had thrown the knife at him from about 10 feet away. Rather, it said Obumzelli must have been stabbed from very up close. To be more specific, here's what it says in the affidavit for Courtney Clenney's arrest warrant. Although the defendant admitted to having caused the victim's injuries in her post-Miranda recorded statement, she also provided several inconsistent accounts about the incident. The defendant claimed she armed herself with a knife in response to the victim having shoved her against the wall by the neck, though not choking her, and then she claimed he threw her to the ground but then allowed her to get up. The defendant's physical body was documented on the date of incident, and there were no injuries to her person to corroborate this account. At no time did the defendant claim the victim was armed with any type of weapon. In describing the stabbing incident, the defendant claimed she threw the knife at the victim from a distance in excess of 10 feet. Based on the location and the depth of the stab wound, the medical examiner opined that throwing the knife from that distance would not have caused that fatal stab wound. In trying to explain her actions that day to the police, the defendant stated, quote, "I do not think this was, I don't know. I really don't know if this was justified at all." Unquote. And so on August 11th, 2022, Clenney was arrested at a rehab center in Hawaii for the murder of Christian Obumzelli and extradited back to Florida. And now she's been charged with one count of second-degree murder with a deadly weapon. Trial is reportedly set for December 19th, 2022. Now, bits and pieces of the relationship between Clenney and Obumzelli have been coming out over the past few months, and no one seems to dispute that this was a toxic relationship through and through. For example, there were apparently countless noise complaints made by neighbors who reported hearing screaming matches between the two with regular frequency. And there was also this elevator security footage that came out from a couple months before Obumzelli's death in February 2022. As you can see, she goes in, tries to hit the button to get up to a certain floor in the building, starts hitting the screen because it's not working, before Obumzelli slowly walks in and motions his key fob in front of the screen to allow the button to be pressed. She then starts smacking him with both hands and starts pulling on his hair. He puts his arms out in what looks like an effort to keep her at arm's length, but otherwise doesn't seem like he's responding in kind. In fact, he looks like he's really holding back, given his overall size and apparent strength. So by all appearances, it looks like she was the aggressor in this incident. But that's not to say that there wasn't some possible mutual abuse between the two in their relationship. In fact, just the day before the stabbing, police body cam footage captured a police response to a domestic disturbance between the two. It was called in by the apartment lobby employee who said he was concerned about seeing Obumseli physically aggressive with Clenney in the apartment lobby area. The incident will likely play a key role in Clenney's defense, since this is a third-party witness who can testify to seeing Clenney being on the receiving end of Obumseli's physical abuse, or at the very least aggression. So here's a bit of what the apartment building employee said that he witnessed.
She said she don't want police to be called, but when it's in a common area and something happened like that, my safety is the residents first. We had residents out here, filming and all this stuff going on in the lobby area and causing the nuisance. So I called because based on we still have him walking around the property and we need to have him removed. Last time we saw him, he was on the ground level.
The employee explained to police that her boyfriend, Christian Obumseli, had been hanging in the lobby since Courtney did not want him up in their apartment and said the situation escalated.
We get down here to the lobby area, her boyfriend comes charging towards her and we actually try to get in the middle of it.
That said, it should be noted that Clenney did say some things during this whole ordeal that was recorded by the body cam footage that has raised some eyebrows nonetheless. Although she does ask the police about how to file a restraining order against Obumseli, she doesn't just ask about how to file a restraining order against Obumseli. She indicates that she wants to file one first. In other words, before Obumseli files one against her. Take a look.
All right, so what do you want to say?
I want to be like, exonerated, I guess, of like anything wrong. And I want him, okay, the police are here. I want a restraining order against Christian Obumseli.
We don't issue those.
No, I'm serious.
To the court.
Can I do that? Where
you have to go to court. You have to go to downtown.
How can I make myself first? Because I know him and he would do it. How can I make myself first?
You got to get there first.
175 Northwest First Avenue.
Before
175 Northwest.
Is he already on the way?
We have no idea. We don't even know how it looks like.
We don't even know who he is. How do we know that?
So all of this is to say that it hasn't been a secret to anyone that has been even really remotely following this case that there has been a lot of toxicity between these two throughout their relationship history and potentially mutual abuse. In fact, the prosecutor at the bail hearing last week did say that the state doesn't actually dispute that there probably was mutual abuse between Clenney and Obumseli during their relationship, which is why it's interesting that despite this arguable mutual abuse, the state still believes that they have a decent case here. Arguably, the biggest piece in the state's case is the medical examiner's report and the fact that they say that it's highly, highly, highly unlikely that Clenney could have wounded Obumseli in the way that she did by flinging the knife at him from 10 feet away. That inconsistency alone calls into question her version of events that unfolded on the night of April 3rd, 2022. But at the bail hearing, there was more evidence that came out that was collected by the police that really calls that into question even more. So what was that bit of evidence? Well, it's evidence of a couple more toxic incidents in the relationship history of Clenney and Obumseli, which really show that Clenney had a tendency to use a knife on Obumseli when she was unhappy with him. But even more than that, they show that arguably Clenney should absolutely have known the consequences of pulling a knife on Obumseli on the night of April 3rd, 2022. Let's get into some specifics. At the bail hearing, the prosecutor put on Detective Yermaine Briseno, the lead homicide detective on this case. He testified that the police extracted thousands of text messages along with tons of photos and videos from Obumseli's phone. These texts paint a vivid picture of the kinds of conversations Clenney and Obumseli would have. But most importantly, they also reveal at least 2 incidents where Clenney actually injured Obumseli using a knife. Here's the first one that they went into from texts that they exchanged between one another between October 9th and October 11th, 2022.
What was discussed on the October 9th and the 11th messages?
So, based off of the messages, there was an argument that occurred again. Mr. Christian writes to the defendant that she stabbed him, and he wants to get into the room, that he needs help, and she pretty much just told him go get first aid, and pretty much just brushed him off.
Later on in those messages, does he confront her about hitting him with a phone?
Yes.
Okay. Does he confront her about her spitting on him?
Yes.
Was it in the context of all of these messages where he also confronts her about stabbing?
Yes.
Did the defendant respond to these accusations from Ms. Romoselli?
Yes.
What did she say in response? You can review your notes, yeah.
Yeah, she pretty much just tells him to go get first aid. And then for several hours, she just didn't answer anymore till the next day.
At any point, does she apologize for her action?
Yes, the following day.
And does she do it in the context of acknowledging the accusations?
Yes.
In those messages, were there any affirmative allegations by her to Ms. Romoselli?
Yeah, she pretty much told him that she apologizes, that she shouldn't have treated him that way. She shouldn't.
Let me cut you off. You didn't understand my question. My question
sorry.
was, did she make accusations about Mr. Romoselli? So, for example, he sent her a message about you stabbed me.
Yes.
Did she reply saying, well, that was because you were choking me?
I can't remember right now.
Okay. Did she make any accusations towards him at all in those messages?
She did, but I can't remember the specific accusations.
I'll direct report to that evidence.
Now, admittedly, the one detail that can alter the characterization of these texts is the information that Detective Briseno said he doesn't remember. Specifically, he did say that Clenney did make accusations against Obumzelli, but that he couldn't remember what accusations she made against him. If those were accusations of some kind of physical abuse or aggression, then this would show a pattern of her using a knife to defend herself. But if those accusations were just things that she didn't like, then this is going to be so damning to her case. And if that's not bad enough, the second incident that came out at this bail hearing was worse. This one was from a series of text messages that were exchanged between Clenney and Obumzelli between January 30th and February 1st, 2022, just 2 months before she ended up killing him with a knife. And this time, she actually put him in the hospital with knife wounds. Here's more testimony from Detective Briseno describing the texts that he examined after the police extracted them from Obumzelli's phone.
Let's talk about January 30th to February 1st. Did you review messages from that incident?
Yes.
Okay, will you tell the court what that incident is about? That's Exhibit 5 for the record.
On those messages, the defendant was trying to reach out to the victim, and he pretty much just said, "Yes, Courtney." At that point, she didn't like the way that he wrote to her, and just started becoming very angry and asking him about why he said, "Yes, Courtney."
Were there audio messages associated with that?
Yes.
At any point in time, did he communicate to her that he had made a mistake because he was doing something?
Yes.
Okay, what was it that he communicated to her?
He explained to her that he was just trying to answer quick because he was watching the overtime on a football game.
Okay. Do you know what overtime he's speaking about?
I believe it was the Bengals versus the Chiefs.
Okay. And so you're referring to the overtime of that?
Yes.
So at any point in time, was there, did the messages continue, or was there a break in time between those messages?
There was a break.
Okay. At the end of the, argument over the tone of the messages and the next message, what is the next message that occurs in that break in time?
May I go back?
Sure.
Okay, so let me interject here really quickly before we get into what comes after that break between those texts to make sure that we all understand. So it apparently all starts out that Obumzelli texts Clenney, "Yes, Courtney," and she gets mad by this response. And he explains that he's watching a football game between the Bengals and the Chiefs, and it's overtime, so he's very focused on that game and just trying to give her a response in the middle of that excitement. Okay, so then there's a break in between the messages, and here's what happened next.
What was the first conversation after?
So the first one that I recall, it was the defendant telling him, "I hope this gives you time to think about what you've done." And then she tells him, enjoy the hospital. And then after a little while, he messages her, I lost a lot of blood. Can you come? I need you. And then she asks him, are you having fun? And this is all between him writing her that he's losing a lot of blood and at the hospital.
Enjoy the hospital? He's lost a lot of blood. What in the hell happened after that text exchange about the overtime football game? Check out what Detective Bersano said about that at the bail hearing.
Were you able to find out what happened in that time period?
Yes, she ended up cutting him with a knife.
Okay. Now, how did you figure that out?
It was all in the messages that he wrote, and she responded back to him.
Were there also photographs from that date and time?
Yes.
And how is it that you figure out the date and time that a photograph is taken from the device?
So through the properties of the photo, it will show you when the photo was created, and it was at the same time and date as these messages were sent to him.
And just so we're clear, the messages had or the photographs also had location information?
Yes.
Do you remember where the location of that was?
It was on the east side of the 195.
Okay. Was that is there a street that's there?
Yes, that's called the Julia Tuttle, but it leads up to the hospital. It was just it was pinpointing right at the hospital, Mount Sinai.
Okay. The state's directing the court to Exhibit 6. So in those photographs, you said it shows that his lip was sliced.
Yes.
And that the location of those photographs were at a hospital.
Correct.
Were you able to locate images of those injuries?
Yes.
Okay. Directing the court to Exhibit 7. Will you just describe the court to what those injuries were?
It was a large laceration that goes from the lip to the bottom of the chin.
Okay. And what is a laceration?
Say that again?
What is a laceration?
Laceration it's a cut.
So there was a large cut from
Yes.
the chin to the lip, and there were stitches, you said?
Correct.
Did he appear to have any other injuries in that stitches photo?
Yeah, he had another small laceration here to the left, I believe the left of the face.
And for the record, you're pointing
to the, closer to the cheek, to the cheek.
Okay.
As well as we noticed that on the photo with the stitches, he had 2 black eyes, or what you would call raccoon eyes.
Okay. So there was dark discoloration on his face by his eyes.
Correct.
Holy crap. So not only did she put him in the hospital with 2 black eyes and multiple cuts to his face, serious enough to require stitches, but she was so cold and uncaring afterwards. Enjoy the hospital? This does not sound like someone who accidentally hurt someone that she loved. This sounds like someone who actually intended to seriously harm him, or at the very least, when she learned that she in fact seriously harmed him, essentially said, good. And importantly, there's nothing in her response that indicates that she had any accusations against him, saying that she harmed him because she was afraid that he was getting physical with her, or anything like that. Of course, it could still very well be that she was actually responding to violence by Obumseli, but based on the tone of those texts, it sounds like she's the aggressor here. And the fact that this is a mere 2 months before she actually killed him with a knife is very, very harmful to her case, because it's recent enough that her knowledge of what could and likely would happen is arguably very fresh. And so now a strong argument can be made that she actually intended to kill him on April 3rd, 2022, or at the very least that she was pretty damn reckless with that knife. She arguably knew that she could seriously injure Obumseli with that knife, and she arguably knew that she could put him in the hospital. She arguably knew this because she had already done it before. And this in turn means that, in my opinion, the prosecution has one hell of a case here. Now, that's not to say that the prosecution doesn't have hurdles to clear with the possibility of Obumseli also abusing Clenney the day before or 2 days before. But as for Clenney drawing a knife on him, That is so damaging to her defense, in my opinion. But those are my thoughts. What do you think? Does this new revelation make any difference in the way that you see this case? Where are you in terms of how you think about this case? Is it murder? Is it self-defense? Are you not quite sure yet? Let us know in the comments down below. Otherwise, I hope you found this interesting or at least informative. And if you did, I would love it if you could hit the like button. It does help us with the YouTube algorithm gods. And there's a good chance this trial will have cameras in the courtroom, in which case it'll likely be live streamed, in which case we will be covering it on this channel from gavel to gavel. So if you want to see more content like this, and if you want to see that trial live streamed, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can find out when the next video is uploaded. See you in the next video.